Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 3rd International Poetry Festival of Patras. We hope you enjoy poetry and discuss the value of poetry in the present age. Next to me are Mr. Antonis Kiathas and Mr. Triandafylos Kotopoulos. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Triandafylos Kotopoulos, give me our comment.
First of all, I would like to say hello to our dear colleagues and the well-established poets that we have in the festival. And I would like to say that as the president of the festival, I would like to emphasize that with your participation in the festival, is a great pleasure and honor for us.
Thank you. So, let's start with poetry with Iliana Sakeliou. Born in Athens, Greece, Iliana Sakeliou studied English at the University of Athens, Edinburgh, Essex, and the Pennsylvania State University. She is a professor in American poetry and creative writing at the University of Athens. Her 18 books with poems, scholarly articles, essays, and translations have been widely published in Greece, France, and the USA. For her academic and creative work, she received 2 Fulbright Award and grants for Princeton University. Her poems have been appeared in 6 international anthologies as well as in many journals and have been translated in 10 languages. Welcome, Mrs. Iliana Sakeliou. We don't hear you.
Perhaps you have to turn on
your microphone. Open.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, of course. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much. I want to express my sincere thanks to the organizing committee, to Mr. Triandafylos Kotopoulos, Ms. Mariella Niadi, and especially to Mr. Antonis Kiathas for a well thought out conference. I also want to say that I'm very honored to be here with all these wonderful poets. I appreciated their reading so much, and I'm looking forward to hearing them speak and discuss our topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we are ready to hear the poem from Iliana Sakeliou.
Hello, my name is Iliana Sakeliou. I'm going to read 2 poems from my 2nd poetry collection entitled Take Me Like a Photograph. The poems have been translated by David Connolly. Study by a Flemish master. He sits evergreen in the crowd, with a movement of the hand as if painting them. He shows me the size of the facing mountains. He wants us to cross the lake as far as the borders, and for me to leave him where he never was. It's dark. I plunge the oar's blades into the somber expanse. In the tenseness, the boat smells of thick vegetation. Owls fly in and out of the leafage at its every propulsion. The rowlocks creak. I rustle. He works in silence.
Thank you, Mrs. Sakeliou. In this time, Mr. Kotopoulos, you can tell us your comments.
Sorry, but the delay confused us a little, so I have to say a few words to our poets and to emphasize that under different circumstances, we would now be your hosts in Patras, and we would have hung banners with your poems on the city's main streets, and we'd be enjoying some very important discussion on poetry, person to person, face to face. And all of those things will be done, but you have to come next year. Life will prevail, poetry will prevail, and the wonderful plans we have for this festival will come to fruition once we meet again. It is in our intention to produce a number of print and electronic publications for the events of the Patras World Poetry Festival with a rich biography of the poets who participated and of course with yours works. Soon you are going to receive an email with our thoughts and proposal for further collaborations. Next to me is sitting one of the most important Greek poets, Adonis Kiathas, the president of the Poetry Office and the main person in charge of the festival, the president of our heart. And allow me to say some extra words for my colleague, for Liana Sekeliou, and to thank her for her presence as a poet and as the moderator of tonight's round table. She's a poet and a professor of American literature and creative writing. She has been teaching creative writing since 1996 at the Department of English Language and Literature of National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. At the same time, she has been teaching creative writing since 2010 at Takis Sinopoulos Foundation. She has written with the literary theorist William Schultz a book on the theory of creative writing with the title Creative Reading, Writing and Life. And I would like to clarify that all of us will be following with great interest the whole discussion ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kotopoulos. Next poet is Johann Carlos Abril. Welcome, Mr. Abril. Can you hear us?
Hello? Yes?
Yes, yes,
Can you hear me?
of course.
I want to say something in Greek. I have prepared. Kalimera σας,
Kalimera.
χαιρόμαι πολύ που παίρνω μέρος σε αυτό το ελληνικό φεστιβάλ. Ευχαριστώ πολύ σε όσους το οργανώνουν.
That's a wonderful surprise for us.
Wonderful
I'm very
Greek.
happy. I'm very happy to stay, to be here, and I want to join
Και τι χώρα να λες. Τι χώρα.
to thank you, the Liana Sakeliou, to the organizers of the festival. I'm very, it's an honor as well for me. And I want to read a poem now, or we are going to see the video.
First, we are ready to see your video with poem, and next time
Then you can read us.
of course.
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you again.
So, Johann Carlos is a professor at the University of Granada, Spain, where he received his master and PhD degrees in Hispanic philology, theory of literature, Combreszéften, Leiter, and Romance philology. He has taught courses, seminars, and workshops on contemporary Spanish and Spanish American poetry in Spain, Italy, Tunisia, Mexico, Puerto Rico, among others. He has resided for several years in England and Wissal in France, in Milan, and in Rome. Critic, essayist, and poet who has published several books, his poetry have been included in numerous anthologies and translated into English, French, Italian, and other languages. He is the current literary director of the literary journal Patras. So let's see the poem.
Kalimera. Hello, good morning. I'm Juan Carlos Abril. I come from Spain. I'm going to read this poem. Its title in Spanish is Exilio Involuntario. Es noche. Puede ser cualquier noche, hoy o mañana, y nunca emergerás desde el subsuelo a la superficie. A veces es más difícil aceptar ayuda que ofrecerla, porque un regalo pide algunas compensaciones y no agradecimiento a tu confianza. Y mientras esperas que sucedan cosas, tus mentiras consiguen que todo siga quieto. El sueño intacto por donde lo dejaste un día. Hay que recuperar los sueños y la nostalgia del futuro, porque una causa justa nunca fue suficiente, y porque algo se ha perdido en la frontera de los nombres, en la capacidad que tienen de romper tabúes, de ver sin ver, su voz sin voz. Sé que me equivoqué con palabras, lo que quieren decir y lo que dicen, y que el fracaso es un camino singular. No puede haber comparación, ni exploradores de metáforas, ni monederos falsos de emociones. Con palabras pobres y generosas, atraviesas un tiempo sin expectativas en pos de vida literaria que significa vida de aventura. Con palabras distingues labios y raíces y alcanzarás de nuevo esa impureza que te arrebataron de tu pequeño mundo antiguo. En busca de su protección más fuerte que la muerte, tan cerca, en un rincón del viento y del olvido, cruza sus vínculos de niebla, escotillón sellado y sus limitaciones en la felicidad lograda de tu isla desierta. A solas con tu lámpara de exilio involuntario. Aquí y allí estaré en la oscuridad. Gracias. Thank you.
Gracias. Mr. Juan Carlos Abril, you can now address yourself in the panel.
So, hello again.
Yes, we are hear you.
Yeah. Shall I read a poem or yeah? Yeah. So I'm going to read another poem in Spanish. It's a poem about.
Mr. Abril, we want to introduce yourself.
Yes. Well.
In the second cycle, you can read your poem.
Well, I come from the south of Spain, as you said, Andalusia, and I think it's a print on my poetry, no, Andalusia and the south. It's I have the tradition of Spanish poems, but as well American poems in Spanish language. Big poets like Octavio Paz or I don't know, in contemporary poets like Fabio Moravito from Mexico or María Auxiliadora Álvarez from Venezuela. It's a big references for me right now, and as well poets like José Ángel Valente, Spanish. He died already, so it's my tradition. But I am open to other traditions, other languages. I like to translate as well. The language I have translated more is Italian. I did some translation from to Pasolini, Pier Paolo Pasolini, Le Ceneri di Gramsci, or I did the translation into Spanish, and I did some books of Marinetti, the futurism avant-garde, or Salgari, Emilio Salgari, between others. It's but I tried to do something in French as well, or English, but the first language I liked, I like in general is Italian. That's me. I don't know how to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. We will see you later. Next poet is Giancarlo Cavallo. Giancarlo Cavallo was born in 1955 in Salerno. His most recent books are La Biblioteca in Riva al Mare, Tribute to the 26th Dead Woman. Some of his poems have been translated in French, Spanish, English, Greek, Serbian, and Turkish. He has participated in many international poetry festivals in Italy and abroad. He founded with Sergio Lagumi and Raffaella Marzano the House of Poetry of Varonisi in Salerno. He edits the column Versco Casa, Poeti Lontani Vinci da Vicino, on the multimedia magazine Patras, with which it invites to the reading of the great contemporary international poetry. Welcome, Giancarlo Cavallo. We are ready to hear your poem.
Welcome. Tu sono pronto per leggere il mio
Sì.
poema?
No, lo fanno loro, saluta.
Hello, good morning, Kalimera.
Kalimera, we are ready to see your poem.
Yes.
Il gioco del come se. Nel giorno del come se, il filo spinato all'improvviso fiorirà e una donna bellissima e nuvolosa pronuncerà petali di parole. Dalla corolla della sua bocca api e farfalle immagineranno zingari antichi e fabbri forgiatori di futuro perduti nei loro imprevedibili sogni d'amore. Nel giorno del come se, le carte geografiche si riempiranno di pesci, balene, delfini e sirene, e improvvisi uccelli notturni impediranno ai confini di attraversare la foresta. A cavallo di una carta da musica, Sinbad volerà da Atlantide all'isola di Utopia, tra i capricci della stella di Venere e le lacrime delle Pleiadi. Nel giorno del come se, la giustizia divorerà la legge, cercando inutilmente un cuore da immergere nel suo calice di vino. E un banditore ubriaco leggerà per le strade il proclama dell'abolizione perpetua del tempo. Tuttavia, si conserveranno gli orologi a pendolo, a cucù e i meccanismi idraulici per cantare la ballata delle ore perdute, mentre i treni continueranno ad arrivare, come sempre, puntualmente in ritardo. Nel giorno del come se, tutte le lettere d'amore smarrite finalmente arriveranno al proprio vero destinatario e gli amanti dipingeranno le parole mai pronunciate cucendole con fili colorati tra l'orizzonte e il vento. Quel giorno, quel tempestoso giorno, quel primo ed ultimo giorno, quell'unico ed irripetibile giorno, noi faremo come se fossimo di nuovo e per sempre insieme.
Thank you. Now you can introduce yourself in panel.
I am Giancarlo Cavallo. I am very happy to participate in Patras Festival, International Festival of Poetry. I founded with my friends Sergio Iagulli and Raffaella Marzano Casa della Poesia, House of Poetry, 25 years ago. And you hosted in the house many international poetry. Thank you.
Thank you. We will see you later. Next poet is Mattia Tarantino. Welcome, Mr. Tarantino.
Good morning everyone.
Welcome to our festival.
Thank you, I'm very happy to be here. from Italy, from Naples, where I speak. There's a special bond with your country. Like you are our old brothers. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mattia Tarantino was born in Naples in 2001. He has appeared in several Italian and international newspapers, magazines, and anthologies. His verses have been translated into 7 languages. He has published Tra l'argento e la sillaba, Fiori estinti, and translate Poema della fine. Now we are ready to see the poem.
Vorrei guardare il cielo, ma le stelle mi aprono il sangue e disturbano i versi in bocca ai morti. Stanotte mia madre non partecipa al pane che si spezza, non consente né risate né preghiere, capovolge tutti i nomi e li scavalca. Stanotte mio padre non ricorda quante volte ha indovinato, quante volte la parola gli ha mozzato la parola. Stanotte prendo l'ago e cucio i miei occhi agli occhi di mia madre, prendo un piccolo coltello e svuoto le mie ossa nelle ossa di mio padre. Vorrei guardare il cielo, ma le stelle le ho tra i denti e fanno male.
Thank you, Mr. Mattia Tarantino. Your look is different in the video. We don't hear you. Please open your microphone.
Okay.
Thank you.
I say I cut my hair.
Nice.
Last week. For years, just for introduce myself, for years I've been dealing with contemporary Italian poetry, trying to give light to novice or unknown poets, and collaborating with those already established. And for years I've been translating Giovan Thomas poems for some magazines to give him back his deepest space.
Mr. Cavallo, close your microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. It's okay.
Okay.
Please, Mr. Tarantino, we hear you.
Okay, I need to repeat what I say?
No, it's okay. Continue.
Okay, perfect.
Please.
Only I take care of the date and the lowers, not yet. For the rest, I play at dispersing myself in the voice. As I said in an interview, my voice comes from elsewhere. I forget it by heart. What interests me, the voice, is the range of dynamics. If I read, I can read in the voice of that. Thank you.
Thank you. We will see you later. Next poet is Isabella Vincentini. Welcome. Welcome, Isabella.
Καλημέρα σας. Ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Καλημέρα.
Ακούω. Do you see me? Microfono?
We hear you, yes.
I am here.
Yes?
You see?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Clearly. Everything is okay. Continue.
Okay. I am very happy to here with you. I thank you too much for this invitation, and for me is a particular and very happy occasion. I present my biography.
Not yet. We are ready now to see your poem.
Okay.
Okay.
Il codice dell'alleanza. Avrei voluto che tu prendessi le mie parole per coniugarle e darle un senso, ma tu le lasciavi cadere. Architetture sospese nel vuoto, ombre che si allungano su frutti proibiti. Escogitai spiegazioni, feci ipotesi, domande senza risposta, il senso delle cose. Avevo paura dei miraggi nel deserto dell'anima, per questo uscii dal tuo tempio e scelsi l'esilio. Per questo andai a est dell'Oronte, non per guarigioni miracolose o profezie, ma per chiedere consiglio a Simeone e agli stiditi sulla conoscenza dei segreti del cuore. E tu, che più di ogni altro sei a conoscenza di tutti i miei segreti, tu lo capisci il cuore?
Thank you. Isabella Vincentini is an Italian poet, essayist and literary. She graduated in humanities. The focus of her dissertation was Nietzsche's philological writing and the classical world of Greek tragedy, topics which are received both in her essays and in her poetry. Her essays focus on the debate on the theory of literature between hermeneutics, demonstration and postmodernism appear especially in the book Varianti da un naufragio. She has also published a book about Athens 2015 and 4 collections of poems. Now, Mrs. Isabella Vincentini, you can introduce yourself in the panel. We can hear you.
Allora, I have studied for many years the classic literature, but I didn't know the actual literature. This for me is an important scoperta, new horizon, because I understand many things about the history of Greece and also the different road of the Greek poet. I worked with the philosopher Mario Perniola for many years at Tor Vergata University in Rome. He teaches aesthetic. And we collaborated for many years. A magazine, the name is a Greek name, Agalma. And I wrote many essays about Greek poetry and Greek poems. Later, I worked also for the other newspaper, magazine, and writing book. Aristopoli.
Thank you, Mrs. Vincentini. Next poet is Pier Giorgio Viti. We cannot connect with Mr. Viti, but we will try later. So, next poet now is Desamir Malot. He is missing because he is sick. We hope to see in the future in better situation. Now we read this. Desamir Malot was born in Albania. He graduated from the University of Tirana, Department of Economics and Management. He lives in the city of Saranda. He has published the poetry books Between Loneliness and Silence, presented Hiding Tears, Probably, and Light Shade 2019. He has translated into Albanian 3 volumes of poetry by different foreign authors. He is a participant in several poetic anthologies in Albania and other foreign languages. Cycles of his poems have been published in Greek, Bulgarian, Italian, English, and Macedonian. He is one of the organizers of the International Poetic Meeting, which is held every year in the city of Saranda. He received the first prize for the cycle of poetry False Rainbows at the 3rd International Poetry Competition, Lyrical Voices, Sofia in Bulgaria. Now we will see the poem.
Poezia e dytë titullohet Të jesh e dashuruar. Të jesh e dashuruar do të thotë të zgjohesh pa aguar mirë dita, madje dita të jesh ti vetë. Do të thotë të kesh parë ëndrrën më të bukur, madje ëndra të jesh ti vetë. Do të thotë të qohesh nga qarqaftë e butë, të shkosh të vështrohesh në pasqyrë, pa patur atë frikën që kanë femrat, dhe të jesh më e bukur se mëngjesin e shkuar. Do të thotë të qëndrosh para garderobës, dhe pa pik dileme të veshësh fustanin më të zakonshëm. Do të thotë të shoqëroj për herë një shpengim dhe hutimi brisht, të dalës nxitimthi nga shtëpia, pa vënë re këshillat rutinore të nënës, tek flet prej kuzhinës. Të jesh e dashuruar do të thotë të dhurosh monedha gëzimi edhe kalimtarëve të rastit, të shpërndash një rrezatim ndjellës, të shugatësh flakët e xhelozisë së koleges në zyrën përballë. Të jesh e dashuruar do të thotë që e gjithë bota të jetë e jotja, po pa kërkuar kurrë ta zotrosh atë. Të jesh e dashuruar. Faleminderit.
Thank you, Mr. Deshamir Malo. Now the next poet is Mitko Govok. We will try to connect later with his. So next poet is Bożena Helena Maczur-Nowak. Was born in Poland. She published 7 volumes of poetry, 4 in Polish and 3 in English. She also writes prose and released a novel and a few short story collections. Her work may be found in about 100 worldwide anthologies and magazines. She is winner of many poetry competitions, proud holder of many diplomas, awards and distinctions. Her poetry is now read in many poetry journals and publications around the world. Also, she is a member of Union of Polish Writers Abroad, Polish Authors Association and Association of American Poets. Her poetry was translated into 20 languages. Welcome! Welcome to our festival.
Welcome, Kalimera, Chris.
Kalimera.
I am very grateful for the invitation to this festival. It is a great honor to me to be a part of such a wonderful meeting.
Thank you.
Are you going to present my poems, which I sent you already, read by my American friend?
Now, in this time, we will see your poem.
Thank you.
In the video. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is difficult to tell the heart, do not cry. For that which is buried in its depths, it is difficult not to write that it yearns so. Away from home, somewhere in a foreign land. My memories are like icons, for which I care very tenderly. I pull the memories out of my mind, in place of lullabies for my granddaughter. Though my own grandmother is gone, she lives in my heart. She in her cottage on the rushing stream. I remember well that the cottage was blue, a garden full of hollyhocks, snapdragons, and bees. The meadows carpeted with red poppies, weeds in the crops which my grandfather battled. Blue sky, above white-tailed eagle, and in that meadow I flew kites. White mare with a soft muzzle would place her head gently on my shoulder, and with a childish glance I'd chase a young colt romping behind the barn. Perhaps I will never again see that which lives deep inside my heart, but I will write of it when longing strikes, and I will draw out of my heart that which is dear to me. So do not ask me any more to be silent, because my heart is so very weary. It must unleash what is hidden at its bottom, so it may be washed with dewy tears.
Thank you for your poem. Now you can introduce yourself.
Just a few words what pushes us to write. As far as I can remember, poetry was always part of myself. I remember my family house was filled with poetry, full of books, full of people. My mom was a great singer and dancer, and my dad used to play accordion and sing as well. Years later, I discovered that my father wrote a poetry as well. And to be honest, he just taught me how to read and how to properly understand. In 2004, I decided for the emigration and I went to UK when I live till now. And longing for the country of my childhood intensified my writing. It took several years to show my writing in English, but the first book, full length, was published in 2013. And since then, I've got already 4 English poetry books. My newest one will be published maybe in a week's time in United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Next poet is Roxandra Cesereanu. Unfortunately, she is sick and she cannot connect with us, but we will see her poem. Roxandra Cesereanu, born in Romania, professor at the Faculty of Letters in Cluj, member of the staff of the Center of Imagination Studies and director of the Creative Writing Workshop on Poetry, Prose and Movies Scripts. She published 8 books of poetry. She has also participated in a pair of experimental co-author books writer together with Andrei Congrescu. 3 books of Cesereanu's poetry have appeared in English. Books of her poetry have been translated into English and Hungarian. Now we are ready to see the poem.
God stays on the internet watching the human insomnia as the subwords in the computer drift at extreme speed. Nights are carbonized as all nights. Meanwhile, days are sweety because of utopias and lifebuoys. Give me the perfect word to match in a poem for everybody. Give me the new language for sharing seclusion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Cesereanu. You can introduce yourself in the panel. Next poet is Vulika Imeri. Born in Serbia, lives and works in Kosovo. She graduated in Barcelona and master study at the University of Pristina, while her doctoral studies continue in Sofia University in Bulgaria. She works as a professor at the University of Yagova at the Faculty of Philology. The first edition in 2015 where she published the book Enigma, and the same book in 2017 was translated into Greek by the publishing house Literatus in Thessaloniki. The second edition belongs to the scientific work which was published by Lambert Academy entitled Language of Music Rep. We are ready to see the poem from Imeri.
Silent killer, I keep you still, I hug you, I kiss you, and I kill. Murder, don't accept, you're afraid I'll catch you. I'm wrong that I exist. but I do it. You silent killer. I coat you in my body, thirsty, fragile, for a little love in my epos.
Now we are ready to begin the second cycle. Each poetry will read the poem. So, we can start with Liana Sakeliou.
I'll read it in Greek. Άσκηση φλαμανδού δασκάλου. Κάθεται στην πλώρια Ιθαλής. Με μία κίνηση του χεριού, σαν να του ζωγραφίζει, μου δείχνει τους όγκους των απέναντι βουνών. Θέλει να διασχίσουμε τη λίμνη μέχρι τα σύνορα και εκεί να τον αφήσω. Σε αυτό που δεν ήταν ποτέ. Είναι σκοτάδι. Βυθίζω τις λεπίδες των κουπιών στη σκούρα έκταση. Στην ένταση η βάρκα μυρίζει βλάστηση πυκνή. Κουκουβάγες μπαινοβγαίνουν στα φυλλώματα σε κάθε όθησή της. Οι σκαρμοί τρίζουν. Θροίζω. Δουλεύει στη σιωπή. Ευχαριστώ. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sakeliou. Now you can read Juan Carlos Abril, your poem.
Hello again. I'm going to read this poem. His title is Un moderno dragón. Talks about friendship. Nadie comprende la noche y nada puede atravesarla, excepto tú, con este poema entre las manos. Un tren es un dragón que grita en la oscuridad. Al deslizar su cola, esparce chispas y perfora las sombras con su ojo amarillo. La tierra tiembla cuando pasa. Deja fragmentos o significados para quien tenga una inquietud y los recoja. Deja constelaciones de ciudades en fuga, tu destino. Carácter es destino y una promesa íntima. No cambies. No sé de dónde vengo, tampoco dónde voy, pero ¿qué importa? Quien sienta miedo nunca entrará en la leyenda. Por eso vivo con el mito de la amistad atravesando la frontera de esta página. Y aunque hoy esté solo, me conmueve el abrazo que me aguarda tras este largo viaje hacia el vacío. Da igual si no te esperan en un andén. Yo seguiré luchando por la amistad como una máquina, a pesar de que el hombre, como un animal fabuloso, siempre muerda su propio límite y la melancolía nos deje esta lágrima extraña que llamamos historia. Tren misterioso por el camino de este poema. Tren misterioso hacia tu corazón. Faristópolis, thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ. So, with us now is Mitko Govot. Welcome to our festival. Open your microphone, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry for delay. I was at school as I am professor, and so sorry.
You're welcome. It's okay.
Okay.
Welcome to our festival.
Thanks a lot.
Now, Mitko Govot is...
No.
So sorry.
Pier Giorgio.
Sorry,
I am Pier Giorgio Vitti.
Yes. Pier Giorgio Vitti lives in Italy, where he is a middle school teacher. His poems are translated into 4 languages. In 2010, his critical invitation was published for the catalogue, also translated into Mandarin Chinese. In 2011, he published the first poet collection. He went on stage in a theater as author and acting voice for The Voice of Man, a tribute to the song writer Sergio and Grindo. In 2016, he was part, together with other poets and writers, of the photographic editorial project Memory Card. In 2019, he published the 3rd poetic book. In 2022, he was the only Italian to participating in the international project Infusion Poetics by the artist Cecilia Holband with 113 other poets from around the world. So we can see the video from the poem.
Volevo scrivere per te una poesia d'amore, ma mi è venuta male. Ma non è che se una poesia d'amore viene male, io non ti ami. Pensa a quante cose, anche se fatte con amore, mi sono venute male. Una volta ho provato a cucinare il risotto agli asparagi. Hai detto, è buono, anche se non lo pensavi davvero. Oppure, quando ti ho fatto un regalo che non ti piaceva, tu hai comunque detto, questo proprio mi mancava. Allora accetta pure il mio volerti bene, senza trovare le parole. Sarà come una cerniera lampo, che non chiude nulla, ma che tiene unito, per sempre, qualcosa.
Thank you. Now we are ready to introduce yourself. Please, Mr. Vitti.
Oh, well, I have started to write poems when I was a child, and so I am a poet since I was 6 years old, and after that I have never stopped it. And now I have 42 years old. I am 42 years old. I come from Italy, and I'm so honored to participate to this festival. Thanks a lot. And when I registered this poem, I was at school as I am a professor of Italian history and geo at middle school, and I love very much poetry, and well, I love Italian poetry, especially Italian poetry, but I also love international poetry. One of my favorite author is Raymond Carver, and I also like so many poets of the world, as for example Choran, as for example Mandelstam, as for example American authors, as for example French poets, and well, I have registered these poems when I was at school, and I want to thank my colleague and friend Caterina Trucchia for helping me with this registration. Well, I also like Greek poets as Yannis Ritsos, and I also like Sotirios Pastakas, who is a real good friend of mine. That's enough, I think.
Okay, thank you. But in this time, I must explain that we are live and I have guides in the last time. So we are ready to continue the second cycle with next poet, Giancarlo Cavallo. Open your microphone, please.
A little poem for my Regina, in memory.
Da quando tu non ci sei più, cammino con una gamba sola, respiro con un solo polmone, vedo con un occhio solo, ma i battiti del mio cuore sono inspiegabilmente raddoppiati. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, next poet is Mattia Tarantino. Please, read your poem.
I read a poem, a short poem in Italian than in English. Vedi, non restano che i nostri frutti sulla tavola, mia madre che li sbuccia, i loro nomi che pendono dall'orlo e cadono tra il pavimento e l'invisibile. Ora all'uva basta un soffio per marcire in fretta e diventare una preghiera. You see only remain our fruits on the table, my mother peeling them, their names that hang from the edge and fall between the floor and the invisible. Now a brief is signal for grapes to rot quickly and become a prayer. Thank you.
Thank you for your poem. Now, next poet is Isabella Vincentini. Please read your poem.
Of the Alliance, and I read in Italian. Avrei voluto che tu prendessi le mie parole per coniugarle e dargli un senso, ma tu le lasciavi cadere, architetture sospese nel vuoto, ombre che si allungano su frutti proibiti. Escogitai spiegazioni, feci ipotesi, domande senza risposta, il senso delle cose. Avevo paura dei miraggi nel deserto dell'anima. Per questo uscii dal tuo tempio e scelsi l'esilio. Per questo andai a est dell'Oronte, non per guarigioni miracolose o profezie, ma per chiedere consiglio a Simeone e agli Stiliti sulla conoscenza dei segreti del cuore. E tu, che più di ogni altro sei a conoscenza di tutti i miei segreti, tu lo capisci, il cuore?
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Thank you. Next poet is Pier Giorgio Viti. Please read your poem.
Okay. I wanted to write for you a love poem, but it was too bad. But as well as a love poem comes badly, it's not like loving you no longer. Let's think to such many things, even done with love, they came badly. So some time ago, I tried to cook risotto agli asparagi. You said, that's good, whether you didn't think so. Or that time I gave you a present you didn't like, you still said, this is really what I need. So please, accept the way I love you without finding right words. It will be like a zipper, not closing anything, but it holds forever and ever something. Volevo scrivere per te una poesia d'amore, ma mi è venuta male. Ma non è che se una poesia d'amore viene male, io non ti ami. Pensa a quante cose, anche se fatte con amore, mi sono venute male. Una volta ho provato a cucinare il risotto agli asparagi. Hai detto è buono, anche se non lo pensavi davvero. Oppure, quando ti ho fatto un regalo che non ti piaceva, tu hai comunque detto questo proprio mi mancava. Allora accetta pure il mio volerti bene, senza trovare le parole. Sarà come una cerniera a lampo, che non chiude nulla, ma che tiene unito per sempre qualcosa. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. We are happy because he is with us, Pedro Enriquez. Welcome to our festival. Can you hear us?
Muchas gracias. Hola.
Now we are ready to see his poem. Δεν το έχω.
Mi nombre es Pedro Enríquez. Os hablo desde Granada, España. Mi agradecimiento al Festival Mundial de Poesía de Patras por la posibilidad de compartir mis poemas con todos vosotros. Voy a decir 2 poemas. Cianuro, el poema. Calles robadas, imágenes solitarias. No es la vida, pero sí la vida. Atardece, luz inconquistable la melancolía. Pide un deseo, solo se muere 2 veces. Cianuro, el poema. Viaje. El sol se oculta. Estoy preparado. Los mensajes son el fuego. La noche aún resiste. El ángel es el secreto. Los colores quiebran el azul. Los pájaros anuncian el paso del viento. La poesía se orienta hacia el misterio. El viaje es el camino. Escribo Machado y amanece. Gracias. Nos vemos pronto. Un abrazo.
Thank you, Mr. Enrique. You are lucky because we hear 2 poems. We will see your poem later. Now, Bożena Helena Mazur-Nowak was born in Poland. She published 7 volumes of poetry. Now, Bożena Helena Mazur-Nowak, you can read your poem live. Can you hear us? We cannot hear you. Open your microphone, please.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I just realized that I've got my poem in Polish and English, so I would like to present in both versions I think it will be a nice change for you. It is titled In the Gazebo. It's for my mother, Danuta in heaven. A warm September day, the 13th, your birthday, Mom. Smell of coffee on the terrace, sun is rolling in the asters. There is a pergola in the middle of the orchard, entitled it white ivy. You are sitting in a rocking chair, squinting your eyes in the sun and smiling to yourself. How do you measure the past that burned in the furnace of loss? How to embrace the season of oblivion? What pattern do you cut from the fabric of longing? I look at you from a distance and regret all those lost years. You rock in the chair and eat an apple. I just need to cross the orchard and I could nestle in your arms again. Feel the soothing warmth, listen to the heartbeat, just like I was a child. A sudden gust of wind brought clouds of morning. Shadow fell across the asters. I gaze back to gazebo and I know that you are not there. My heart flutters. I refuse to accept. I close my eyes. Tears flow. You are trapped in my eyelids, Mom, and you have a warm place in my heart, Mom, and the same in my mother tongue. W altanie. Taki ciepły wrześniowy dzień. 13. Twoje urodziny, mamo. Kawa pachnie na tarasie, słońce baszkuje w astrach, w głębi ogrodu w altanie, oplecionej dzikim winem, w bujanym fotelu siedzisz. Oczy mrużysz do słońca, uśmiechasz się do siebie. Jaką miarą można zmierzyć lata, które spłonęły w piecu strat? Jak ogarnąć sezony niepamięci? Co skroić z tkaniny samotności? Patrzę na ciebie z oddali, żałuję tych wszystkich straconych lat. Bujasz się w fotelu i jesz jabłko. Wystarczy przejść przez sad i będę mogła wtulić się w ciebie, poczuć kojące ciepło, wsłuchać się w serca bicie, jak wtedy, kiedy byłam dzieckiem. Nagły podmuch wiatru przygonił żałobne chmury. Cień położył się na astrach. Mój wzrok wraca do altany, już wiem, że to nie ty. Moje serce trzepocze, nie godzi się, nie chce. Zamykam oczy, łzy płyną. Uwięziłam ciebie pod powiekami, mamo. Wymościłam miejsce w sercu. Mamo, thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Pedro Enriquez, you can now introduce yourself in the panel. Can you hear us?
Hola, sí, ahora.
Perfect. You can now introduce yourself in the panel.
Inglés no lo entiendo bien.
Pedro.
Sí, hola, Juan Carlos.
Di unas palabras sobre ti, lo que tú quieras, lo que tú veas. Preséntate un poco, un par de minutos.
Pues gracias por estar de traductor. Bueno, mi nombre es Pedro Enríquez. Soy académico aquí en la Academia de Buenas Letras de Granada, poeta, escritor, editor, un poco de todo, y sobre todo lo que me ha interesado últimamente es la relación de la poesía con otras artes, como con la pintura, la música, con lo cual estoy trabajando...
Espera un segundo, Pedro, y te traduzco. He says he's academic in Granada, he's poet, and he is very interested in relations between paintings and music and poetry. Sigue, Pedro.
Y en esa relación también estoy en la manera de que la poesía debe de llevarse a lugares como estoy haciendo, como la cárcel. Estoy dando talleres de poesía a los presos.
Espera y digo eso. He's doing some atelier in jails for people who is in jail, for example. ¿Sí?
Lo que me ha llevado pues, a cárceles de Rumanía, a cárceles de Marruecos, a cárceles de España, y ahí es donde se ve perfectamente que la poesía es curativa, la palabra cura.
And he says he has been in Romanian jails, Morocco jails, in Spanish jails, and he has proved the poetry can be cure your pains.
Y quizás como algo también importante dentro de mi trabajo de difusión es que dirijo 2 festivales de poesía en Granada.
He is the director in 2 poetry festivals here in Granada, in Spain.
Y nada más, que la poesía es pasión y que creo que eso es lo importante, que por eso nos encontramos aquí, lo cual para mí es un gran honor.
He says he is very honored to be here, and for him, poetry is a passion. So this is most important for him, and the poetry is something that joins us.
Gracias, Juan Carlos.
Un placer.
Thank you,
okay.
Mr. Pedro Enrique, and your help, Juan Carlos Abril. So we are ready to hear the poem from Pedro. Please, Mr. Juan, explain my decision to Pedro.
Of course. Pedro, léenos un poema ahora que tú quieras, ya en directo.
Ajá, vale. Pues voy a leer de uno de mis últimos libros, bueno, quizás de este, Las estatuas de sal, que está traducido al griego por Stavros, y como está en bilingüe, pues lo voy a leer.
He says he's going to read a poem from a book he's published in Greek as well, in bilingual, translated for Stavros.
La habitación sin espejos. Es confusa la hora, la puerta, los goznes, el humo del vacío, la imagen de Dios, la siembra de la costumbre. Cierro los ojos para contemplar la luz. De nuevo la pregunta. Una moneda sin rostro. Miro a los lados. Te busco en la herida, en la llama que funde la cera. Bautizo las palabras. Me desnudo en la sombra. Te persigo en la soledad del otro. Digo cielo, aprendo las muecas, extiendo las manos, acribillo el lenguaje del Padre Nuestro, los signos de lo sagrado, la batalla y la torpe certeza de la vida. Araño los troncos, grabo las preguntas. Sobre mi nombre escribo tu nombre. La luz en la luz. Entonces tu presencia en la habitación sin espejos. Gracias.
You can tell us your comments, please.
Dear Juan, would you be kind enough to translate to Professor Pedro that we have same programs about the therapeutic function of poetry in prisons through our postgraduate programs in creative writing in Greece, so perhaps we can collaborate.
Micrófono, Juan Carlos.
Perdón. Pedro, dice que quizás podéis colaborar y puede hablar sobre el asunto de que has dicho de la poesía como terapéutica en la prisión, que está muy interesado en ese tema.
Bien, el trabajo en la prisión para mí es un privilegio, y es un privilegio porque entrar y salir de nuevo ya supone que la libertad es un valor que a veces se nos olvida que tenemos.
¿Lo traduzco? Okay.
Sí.
He says it's a privilege to work in prison, in jail, and to go in and to go out is something very important to feel the difference between to go in and to go out from the prison.
Hemos realizado a través de los talleres de poesía algunos elementos, como han sido camisetas con los poemas de los presos, un libro también con los poemas de los presos, y hay algunas frases que son las que realmente te hacen comprender el valor de la poesía en la cárcel.
Bien. He says with jail people, they did some T-shirts and they did some books and some phrases written express the real value of the how is to live, how is to stay in prison.
Momentos puntuales que son los que nos hacen comprender el sentido de la globalidad, del todo, son, por ejemplo, un preso que uno de sus poemas apareció en el libro, él no sabía que iba a aparecer, y es un poema que dedicó al hijo. Y cuando él le entregó el libro con el poema al hijo, sintió que su dignidad de hombre había sentido que la había perdido. En la cárcel había sentido que había perdido la dignidad del ser humano, y al encontrar en un libro un poema dedicado a su hijo y regalar el libro a su hijo, se sintió que la dignidad de él había realmente vuelto a él.
Bien, voy a traducirlo, a ver si lo puedo hacer, ¿no? I'm trying to do my best. So he says a prisoner was very depressed. He thought he had been lose his dignity in prison. But when he published a poem and he made a gift to his son, to this poem in this book, he came back, the dignity came back to him toward the gift, the poem in that book.
Hay frases como, por ejemplo, cuando estoy en el taller de poesía, se me olvida que estoy en la cárcel.
Okay. And he says that sometimes when he is in jail, he forget he is in jail. En fin,
yo algo que creo que es importante en el poeta y que yo les quiero hacer llegar es que el poeta es un gran observador. Entonces, desde el momento en que ellos se convierten, en vez de personas que sufren, en personas que observan lo que hay a su alrededor, cambia totalmente su forma de estar en la prisión.
And he says as well that the poet is a big observer. He's and when you are in a prison, you change your way of to see how to see.
La poesía es libertad para estas personas que están. Gracias, Juan Carlos.
And for prisoner, poetry is freedom.
Gracias.
Okay, Pedro. Gracias a ti.
Muchas gracias, Juan Carlos.
Thank you to share your experience with us, Pedro. Gracias por compartir tu experiencia, Pedro.
Gracias.
Jana, I'm sorry, apologizes, but I couldn't stand but asking Professor Pedro about his experience in so many prisons around the world. Thank you very much.
And we can try to connect with Mr. Gogov, so we will wait 2 minutes to give him the opportunity to connect. So, Mrs. Sakeliou, you can tell us your words about the festival? Open your microphone. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Okay, hello. Hello, everybody. Yes, all right, here we are. Shall we start
One
the
minute,
round table?
Mrs. Sakeliou. Mr. Gogov, you can hear
Yes,
me?
yes, I'm here. I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear. Yes, yes. But we can't see you. Please check your internet connection. Welcome to our festival. You can
Hello,
hear me?
good day and greetings to all the participants.
We are so happy to be here.
Me too, thanks.
Welcome. We can see you, but now...
Do you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. So...
Ciao, ciao. I'm sorry that I'm a little bit late, but I hope that I will catch it afterwards.
It's okay, it's okay. We are happy to be here then. So, Mitko Gogov is conceptual artist, published poet and short stories writer born in North Macedonia. Youth worker and civil artist, blogger, open for communication. He writes poetry, short stories, essays and journalism. His work so far have been presented and translated in several anthologies, collections and journals for literature and intern in India, Pakistan, USA, China, Russia, Spain, Italy and others. Award poet with few international awards in his country and around the world. He is organizer of the international movement and festival 200,000 Poets for Chance in Macedonia, Strumfica for the last 10 years, founder of the awards Antevo Slovo, Italy and Antevo Pero, North Macedonia, in the honor of the famous poet and intellectual. He organized many other culture and art events, collaboration with youth, art, film and theater festival. Now we are ready to see the poem.
Анатомија на топлината. Оти се испомешани кодовите. Оти вистинската мисла се заменува со некоја навидум важна. Оти сме генерирани патриоти на ненапишаната историја. Затоа сме ништожна прашина, звезда, предумирање, заборавена желба на маите да се преродиме. Некаде во дупчињата на артериите играме загревање, како тулите истаклената волна во електрична печка. Анатомија на топлината. Се идентификувам во секоја пора на дрвјата. Центарот на мојот дом го барам во распуканите засушени полиња. Потоа, од грудките го правам планетарниот систем, универзумот на скриените подземни води, мојот космос.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gogov. You can introduce to yourself in your panel.
Thank you very much.
You can introduce yourself in...
Yes. It's my 5 minutes. Sorry. So basically, it's
okay.
my friends, dear poets, and the people who are watching this stream of the Patras Festival. Basically, that what was said in my short biographies. That what I do mostly the last 10 years of my life. I started writing since when I was young, and afterwards, when I finished high school, I decided that maybe the literature and the poetry in general is not something that should be the thing that will guide me in my life, and that's why I decided in that time to start with art academia and try to find out about some other disciplines that are part of the creativity of the spirit and the mind. So in that time, I didn't write a lot of poetry, but I don't know, somehow once when I I was staying in Paris, I decided that maybe it's time after 25 years to try to give the first book of poetry to the world, and that was the first time when I see that actually the things that I write, there is the audience that want to hear and read about, and with the festival that I start as a part of 100,000 Poets for Change, it was much easier because it is a movement where most of the authors can speak about actual topics that concern us in a local or in a global way, and to connect with this social frame of writing poetry for me maybe was the first triggering that I am actually doing a real poetry, a poetry that is connect to the contemporary man. And after the first book and the first translations and connections with different festivals around the Balkans, I saw that the poetry, it has something that in different times is differently accepted from the global community and from the mankind in general. But for those who decide to be active in the poetry, there is always something that can make you be a better human. If you have some questions, maybe it will be easier for me to open some other perspective of what in general we speak.
You will discuss with other poetries. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to start the third cycle of our event. So please, Mrs. Sakeliou, let's start the discussion with other poetries.
Thank you so much, Ileana. So today it is my great pleasure to serve as the moderator of this roundtable discussion called National Poets and the Modern Function of Their Works. I must say that I was very moved by the readings we just heard and the varieties of our poets' activities. They set my mind in motion, wondering what my fellow poets would say about their poetry and our theme. I will express a few ideas to get us started, as a musician might play a few notes to lead other musicians in a session of improvisation. National poets influence generations of followers. They give a voice to the people. They unite them. They express their common feelings, their deepest feelings. They inspire them to greater things. Probably each one of us can share some ideas about the unique status of poetry in our country. Though Homer's poetry was created almost 3,000 years ago, still it is alive and everywhere, not only in Greece, of course, but in the international world. Here, the name Homer is given to people, streets, business organizations. The names of the persona of his works are everywhere. His poetry has become associated with any character today. All the young poets must define themselves in relation to the poets of the past, or think so. The national poets have a legacy of craft and vision. This influence makes me think of the conditions for the growth of very tall redwood trees in California. They require a special soil. The Pacific Ocean sends a mist and gives them special nutrients. National poets give us the soil and sea mist that we need. This issue of the legacy of craft and vision is an important one for us as poets. Poets also have a deep bond with the place where they live, either actual place or psychological place. They act as the living inside of a shell. It gains its nutrients by filtering the sea around it, and in so doing, it might even create a pearl, a thing of beauty. We can think of examples of poets writing about places, specific places, actual places in our countries. To summarize, I started to ask myself the following questions when I saw the theme of our panel on my computer screen. How has our poetry expressed a deep bond with place? What is the influence of a national poet on us or on others? How do poets give a voice to the people? How is poetry unique in each of our nations? How is poetry unique to our history? What is the legacy of craft and vision left to us? These are some of the questions that came to me. So I'll start with our round table discussion on national poets, and we'll see how much time we have left. Not much, I'm afraid, but I thought it's very important to hear you speak about yourselves and read your poetry. So I suggest you speak for 2-3 minutes, and we can all speak together at the end of the session. So why don't we proceed in the order of the names on the program? And first, Pedro. Pedro, would you like to start? In the poem that you read for us, you mentioned Machado and a quotation from him. So would you like to say a few things about what our theme means to you?
I imagine I have to translate, ¿no? It's okay. Pedro, dice que en el poema que has leído has mencionado a Machado.
Sí.
Cuéntanos un poco sobre esa relación con Machado.
Bueno, hay una frase en el poema donde dice la poesía es el misterio, o algo así, ¿no? Porque hay algo que escribió Antonio Machado que a mí siempre me ha parecido muy importante a la hora de enfrentarse a un poema. Y él...
Espera, porque si no se me va mucho la idea. He says that the poetry is a mystery, and Antonio Machado writes something very important, and Pedro always has in his ideas. Sigue.
Esa frase es: el alma del poeta se orienta hacia el misterio.
Ajá. That phrase is the
yes.
Poet's soul is always versus mystery.
Y este es un homenaje a Antonio Machado, porque incluso hablo de viaje y hablo que el camino es lo importante, no el final. Y es un guiño a su poema, ¿no? Caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. Por eso.
Yes, he says it's a homage a Antonio Machado. The way is important, the path is important, not the finish, not to finish. It's, the important is to finish. It's something Antonio Machado says in a poem.
Incluso su viaje en tren. Por eso este poema es como un viaje en tren en el que voy leyendo a Antonio Machado y digo que lo importante es el camino y que el alma del poeta se orienta hacia el misterio. Entonces, escribo Machado y amanece, ¿no? Porque no me ha dejado dormir la intensidad de sus poemas y eso es ese final donde todo el poema gira alrededor de Antonio Machado, ¿no? Pero al final doy la clave.
And he says that his poem is written by train, like another famous poem of Machado. And at the end of the poem, the day comes, the day arrives, no? So that's and he's writing as well that verse. The poem is versus mystery, or the mystery like the most important in poetry, no?
Por eso ese aire de misterio que se desvela al final.
For that is the mystery.
Okay, perfect. And I guess this is Pedro's answer. Pedro, this is your answer, right? To the question of nationality and how it affects us.
Y dice que esa es un poco tu respuesta, ¿no? A esa relación con tu tradición nacional, ¿no? Con tu manera de entender, ¿no?
Sí, yo siempre me ha parecido que un poema tiene que haber o al principio o al final, en medio, un aire de propio, no dejarlo todo claro, para que cada lector sea siempre distinto. Y la interpretación de un lector y de otro, los poemas muy claros no me llaman la atención, sino aquellos que son tan abiertos como el propio misterio.
He says that always he tried to leave a mystery in the poem, or at the beginning, or at the middle, at the end. He is not interested in the clear poems, so clear poems, and that's important for him.
Well, thank you so much, Pedro. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Juan Carlos. Yo no lo haría así de bien.
And let's move on to Juan Carlos. Juan Carlos, would you like to share your ideas with us?
Yes, I'm going to be very short. Well, I'm interested in traditions, as I said before. Where, of course, in the Spanish tradition, not only from here in the Spain, as well in American, Hispano-American poets. That's very important for me. We are no poets. We are anybody without, for example, Rubén Darío, no, the Nicaraguan poet. He's the foundation of the modern poetry in the Spanish language. At both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. And his influence is very important for the development of the poetry, the modernity in Spanish poetry, in Spanish language poetry. So for me, it's important the tradition. Not only Spanish, I like as well international poets, but of course my language is Spanish, no? So it's my first referee, no? It's my reference, no? But of course I like a lot French poetry or English poetry, Greek poetry, of course, or Italian poetry. I love all that traditions, and I have read a lot of poets of the world, Swedish, Polish, Chinese, or everywhere. I try to get the best translations always. But I wanted to say that in this global world, no, in which we have to manage different traditions, and I am very interested in the relations or dialectic relations between realism or tradition and avant-garde, no, because it's something that I call it the third way. Like the third way is not only tradition, is not only realism, and is not only avant-garde, a language very difficult only for poets, or neo-avant-garde. So I try to mix both, some things of realism or traditional references or not only in Spanish, of course, as I said, and as well I try to take the best of the avant-garde, the rich tradition of the avant-garde on the 20th century. So that's the third way is what I am interested in.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing. Now we'll move on to Giancarlo. Giancarlo, could we hear some of your thoughts on our topic, please?
Sorry for my terrible English, but I studied French. I love the great French poetry of Baudelaire, Rimbaud, Mallarmé, the Surrealists, Éluard, Ponge. And also, excuse me, because I don't like the definition national poet. I believe that poets like Homer, Dante, Cervantes, Shakespeare, etc., are international poets, the heritage of all humanity. Also, national is the root of nationalism. Nationalism is the root of fascism. Fascism is the root of racism. In fact, the list of Italian national poets also includes Gabriele D'Annunzio, an important writer, but he has been now for his nationalistic and warlike activism. Beware of word that can hurt a lot. Life without poetry would perhaps be less beautiful, sadder, but it would continue to exist. On the contrary, poetry without life could not exist. So poetry must breathe life. It must be the voice of life. But it cannot be limited to a decorative, ornamental role. It cannot be just beautiful. It must be necessary and urgent. It must be the voice of the mute world, of all those who cannot speak, minerals, plants, animals, human beings, whose right to speak is taken away. It must also be the place of the continuous conversation of lies and deed, eros and thanatos. It is not news, it is not an intimate diary, it is not even literature, even if it compares all the great poetic voice that preceded it. For example, in Italy, Dante Alighieri, Giacomo Leopardi, Giuseppe Ungaretti, Pierpaolo Pasolini, etc. These voices are still active and the poetry feeds on them. Paradoxically, it has the responsibility to dialogue with the future, perhaps even more than with the present. I think that the poet must sublimate his own individual experience of joy, pain, wonder, indignation, transforming it through poetic language into a shared universal experience. Empathy, emotion that are expressed through the sounds, the rhythm, the voice. For example, Caron, non ti crucciare, vuolsi così colà dove si vuole ciò che si puote e più non dimandare. Dante Alighieri. Si sta come d'autunno sugli alberi le foglie. Giuseppe Ungaretti. E andando nel sole che abbaglia, sentire con triste meraviglia com'è tutta la vita e il suo travaglio, in questo seguitare una muraglia che ha in cima cocci aguzzi di bottiglia. Eugenio Montale. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and Giancarlo, and thank you for trying to speak to us in English. Perfect. Let's move on to Mattia Tarantino. Mattia?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to be very short. I think poetry cannot resist except by attempting a plot from voice to voice, if not encroaching on the voice of others and in their languages. The poet always remains voiceless in front of the language, and without language in the face of the voice. Mario Mieli, an Italian activist, reminds us that beyond the totality, there is everything else. It is that unknown threshold that interests me. That door without foundation, an arch open to the desert and the invisible. I think poetry must have to do with a map of the invisible, a map of other words and other sounds. Speak the language of angels, of catastrophe, of bandits. The poet, as he speaks, knows he is speaking. It is the feeling of language, of our being in a threshold blocked by incense and cement. If poetry has a way to go, this is the way of the possible, not of what it is, but of what it could be. We must learn to anti-design, to twist the thresholds. We must learn to gather in our voice the voice of all those who have gone before us. We have to learn that to hold the alphabet and its plots, there is a teeny turn point. We need to remember the name we have lost on our mother's lips. After all, it is a question of reversing the fate and little else. Offer a last word to the dull world. This is the task of poetry, and this is, I believe, the task of translation. Mine is not a statement, mine is an attempt to bridge. I I conclude with some verses by Josip Mandelstam, written in 1918. Let's try and niemand stern, clumsy and creaky. Thank you.
Mattia, thank you very much. We appreciate your thoughts. Next, Isabella. Isabella? Hello. Would you like to share your thoughts with us? Your microphone has to be turned on.
Now,
all the time.
Arrived my voice?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Perfect.
Allora, especially in the period when I was asked to write a book about Athens, Athens, an ancient future is the title. 20 years ago, I discovered the immense dimension of the contemporary Greek poetry. I discovered a new universe for me, which had everything that European poetry of the 20th century lacked. The sense of a collective, the history, a millenary identity, itographia, the ability to blend the spirit and the material, a lyricism where the divine is a solar metaphysic, and where, as Elitis wrote, social reality, and is lifting the truth from realism, a poem where the landscape and the nature are not an object, but a lived reality. In my second poetic collection, The Hours and the Days, a minimal geography of the Dodecaneso with the epoxy test in Neo-Greek and in the Code of the Alliance, this new gaze has entered a material gaze, the concreteness of the physical datum, learned from the modern Greek poetry, so different from symbol, emblems, the poetic objects or objects correlative like Montale. There was no more need for that scale that Montale told us about between the outside and the inside, to evoke an emotion, to silence the occasion, and to express the object, such as the dead leaf or the river Stenglis. Paraphrasing the title of the book of Giuseppe Ungaretti, Feeling of the Time, Sentimento del Tempo, I would say that the function of the writing is to convey our feeling of time. The horizon that I believe is essential for our memory in this period is not the metaphysical reflection or the end of the modern of our European 20th century, but the contemporary and the ancient one of our Mediterranean, a Mediterranean full of memories, laceration of history. It is there that the present move for me today. There is the geopolitics of the future between the migration, wars, conflicts, religiosity, and suffering. In that ancient crossroad that from the African coast of Alexandria in Egypt by Giuseppe Ungaretti, Costantino Cavafis, such the titles of the poem of Ungaretti, Il Porto Sepolto, The Buried Port, or The Promised Land, until to the Algerian coast of Africa by Albert Camus, from the Turkish coast of Smyrna by Georgios Seferis, up to Cretan Sea, to Nikos Kazantzakis and Odysseus Elitis, from Minoas, the Byzantine Monemvasia of Giannis Ritsos, to the Syrian shores of the poet Adonis. The poet have been and will remain in witnesses of history. And I fear that today the function of a poetry runs the risk of becoming self-referential. In the ancient world, the poet represented the mythical and the collective memory. In Roman times, the poet was already part of a small circle of intellectuals. The new poets, the neoteroi, who no longer sang heroic deeds but individual feelings such as love and friendship. Always, the function of the poet is to be a witness of his time. The poet is the critical conscience and the spokesman for the values and a word to which he is able to give a voice, with peculiar and individual poetic and stylistic personality. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Isabella, for sharing your thoughts. Now we'll move on to Pier Giorgio. Pier Giorgio.
Here I am.
Okay, thank you.
I have wrote some line about this theme. I would like to read them. I wondered who are national poets and if it's necessary today in a globalized world, liquid, to use Bauman's expression, to speak of national poets. I agree with Giancarlo Cavallo. I think of Choran, of Mandelstam. Can we consider them national poets? And of which nation? But Dante Alighieri himself, expelled from his city, Florence, to die in Ravenna. Can we consider him Italian, Florentine? And then another poet comes to my mind, Ugo Foscolo, born in Zakynthos, Greece, when Zakynthos belonged to the Republic of Venice and forced into exile because Zakynthos was, with the Treaty of Campo Formio, passed to Austrians. His father was from Veneto. His mother was Greek, and he lived between Florence and Milan in what we would now call Italy. This is to say that the idea of nation perhaps does not exist yet in Italy. It's a progressive idea under construction because we are a very young country compared to other European countries, France, England, for example. And we are a country where there are still many differences and many languages too. Not by chance, we have, fortunately, because some are very talented, many dialectal poets. A wealth that is only Italian, as far as I know. Therefore, since there is no Italian nation, we say that there are no national poets. There are more prominent poets, others less prominent. Poets who renew the language, experimental, we could say, and others who follow the lyric tradition, as Juan Carlos said before. So what is the function of the work of this poet? In my opinion, inventing a new word, building an archetype, because poets are, as Pedro said before, a mystery. So as we poets are mystery, we couldn't be national, we belongs to the heritage of the world. So this is my opinion about this theme. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Pier Giorgio, for sharing your thoughts with us. Let's move on to Mitko. Mitko.
Hello.
Hi.
I don't know if I was correct in the first round with my introduction, and this topic that we have today for the panel for me is very important. First of all, because in this moment my country, North Macedonia, the new name, that was the problem that we had before with the naming of our country, Macedonia. In this moment, we have bilateral conflict with Bulgaria about our language. Are we speaking Macedonian, or is it actually the Macedonian language some kind of dialect of the Bulgarian language? And actually, our Macedonian language is codified, and our language is accepted by the official institutions in the world, signed by more than 100 countries. And in that way, when we speak about national writers or national scientists that are using the language as a primitive tool for their scientific diggings, I can say that the prime definition for me is that our language is our nationalism, and everything that it comes that is born with the idea of the language. In that way, we can use our language for building up our national spirit, and in that way, I respect the national poets that give that positive spirit to Macedonians in all these centuries to keep us together and have our way to transfer our tradition, our folklore, our idea about our nation through the poetry and the prose. And in that way, as every nation in Macedonia, I can say that there are Ante Popovski, Kočeracin, and Blaža Koneski, and those are poets that have the both two positive attitudes that I think that every poetry should have in the basic form, and that is that national vibe, that is acting good to our nation, but in same way you can put it on the table to be translated to all the languages around the world, and it will apply in the same way for all the other languages in which it will be translated. And of course that the poetry can be rude, can put a bad seed in the nation mind. In that way, I agree with Giancarlo as well, that if you use the language or the poetry like a bad seed to plant bad ideas, then we don't speak about the anthropological form of nationality literature, but then we speak about some hidden agenda, or you use the language or the poetry like poison, or like coding in the human's brain, and it goes in other definitions of ultranationalism or fascism, or etc., as we say. So I respect that the poetry in that way. We should, a lot of people can say in the world that there a lot of poets, I could say, they use the poetry like a weapon to make the world a better place. And I don't agree with that, because we put the weapon and the peace in one sentence. I much prefer when we use the poetry as a tool for making the world a better place. In that way, I respect all the poets that find the difference between using the nationality to make your nation love and respect and care about their nation, and as well to be prepared to share the common ideas with the nation living next to each, or wherever in the world. In that way, ending of this topic that, as I say in the beginning, it's very huge in the moment, but I don't want to push up too much in this Macedonism, because then I will cross the limit of respecting too much my nationalism and putting ego on it. I would say huge thanks to all the good translators around the world, because the ones that are making the actual bridges between the national poetries across are the good translators, without which we could keep our poetry only inside our borders. And the poetry is not to be only for one nation. It's we write to be the key to open the angel skies, as one of the participants, Matthias, I think, say in his elaboration. Thank you and greetings.
Thank you, Mitko. Thank you for sharing very interesting ideas with us. And now it's the turn of Elena. Elena?
Think that you
Hi.
that you are waiting for me. I am just listening, and almost everything was already said, but it's true. We live in a different part of world. We had a different history. So it was like, for example, like my country, Poland. My country was divided between surrounding countries, Germany and Russia and Austria, for about 200 years. They wanted us to lose our nationality, but because of our famous poets, we still have got it, because in their poetry, they are showing beauty of our country. They are inspiring us to fight for our freedom, fight for ourselves, fight for our feelings. Thanks to them, we've got our Poland, beautiful Poland again. At school, we are learning about ancient poets, and I think that they always will be on the top, because their ideas are still so valued as they were when their poems were written. So we should still read them. We should still take from their poetry as much as we can. I started to translate poetry not long time ago, but whenever I am doing something like that, I am learning a lot from people which I am translating, because I am asking very many questions, because we live in a different cultures. We were raised from a different part of words. The feeling love is a pure, but we can express love in so many ways. It depends of a place on the earth we live at the moment. So I am trying to take from the modern poetry for around the world at the moment as much as I can. I am trying to show my country poetry from Serbia, from Romania, from Peru, from a different country. I just started to translate. As people are doing that to me, I am doing that in another way. And I think that we poets have got a power, and we have to be very careful how we use our poetry, because we can spread a life, we can spread love, but we can also set a fire. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Elena, for sharing your thoughts with us. I think we are done with our poets. I would like also to share some ideas with you. In my university years in Britain, it was George Seferis who talked to me as a poet in exile and also as a person of privilege. He wrote from the perspective of an exiled poet, which I valued, feeling myself split between countries, between languages, between homes. And it was his poem, Thrush, that touched me the most and made me devote myself to the mode of existence that was largely a poetic one. He wrote Thrush on the island of Poros. My father came from Poros. I used to spend, and I still do, all my summers there. And I passed by Galeni, the place, the house, where he stayed, where Seferi stayed and was inspired. Finally, I saved Konstantinos Kavafis for my middle age, as I saved the translation and the work on Emily Dickinson poems for my middle age. And then I discovered what a departure both were for me. Poets of honesty, integrity, and he must have left himself to be outside of his time's tradition and convention. He selected his own society as she did. He spoke in lucidity and humor about his feelings of separateness and had the courage to express it in a series of poems. A whole new voice, style, more uncontainable, original. He created a language of experience adequate for expressing life's complexity. He universalized what he lived. I believe that these two Greek poets influenced me as a poet, just as they influenced many poets of my generation and after. But I agree with you with what you said, and I want to share this because I want to share this poem by Emily Dickinson. It's about a house, the building of the house. And she says, the props assist the house until the house is built. And then the props withdraw and adequate, erect. The house support itself and cease to recollect the augur and the carpenter, a past of plank and nail and slowness. Then the scaffolds drop, affirming it a soul, affirming it a soul. So I quoted this poem because to me, it means that our old poets, national poets, international poets, created the house of poetry we now live in, but we hardly remember. So time is past. It's 2:15, and I think that I should close this wonderful discussion, your presentations, by just recapitulating on some of the stuff that you said. And then if you want to add something, please do. So we started. Yes.
Liana, yes?
Yes.
I would like to say something about what dear poets said about the nationalism. It's very interesting, the discussion, because I think for poets, for writers, the first nation or country is our language, is our own language.
Correct.
And even more, I could say a dawn or a sunset is poetry as well, no? As Maria Elena said, no? And we have a lot of things we feel poetry, but we have to ask or wonder: is poetry a universal language or no? Is a universal exist? As Mitko said, it's an anthropological feeling. No, everybody can feel the same. No, it's something that I would like to share with you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Who would like to speak? I can't see the chat, I'm sorry. Okay, here it is.
Maybe I can say something.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I want to say greetings first to the organizers of Patras festival. It's seeing my festival that 2020 made the first jubilee of 10 years. I'm wishing you to grow as well as a festival, and hopefully in future to have offline panel discussions in Greece, speaking about the one that you have for this year edition of the festival, because basically we just make some introductions of what we have to say, trying to put it in some easiest form of sharing what is important, and I would love to give my personal will to keep going on the way that we are doing till now, because basically we figure out what is poetry, and the poetry is yes, something that is good for the world, something that we need to push for, not fight for, as again in the relation with the weapon. We don't fight for something, but we push for something via poetry. And as we say, our common language is the poetry, and we need to push more in future, so make it to come to a bigger audience. As we have a bigger audience, we fulfill one of the biggest wish of the poetry itself, to be the language of understanding. Greetings to all.
Yeah, I have to a provocation to ask Juan Carlos. What if the language doesn't exist? What if what we call language were nothing more than a field of developing tensions? What if it were a game of sound textures and overlapping and parallelism of ciphers? It seems to me that poetry is universalizable because it abides in the possible, but not necessarily universal. We have to try to make a plot among us. But what if the language is is only a field of developing tensions, as I said.
Anybody else who would like to share ideas right now?
Yes, I would like to say that even
Please,
if I
George.
don't understand Spanish, when Pedro read his poems, I felt something like a big explosion. So that's for say, even if I don't understand some language, as Spanish, poetry, the language of poetry is a universal language. So it's important to translate them to understand the poems. But if not, it's the same for me, because as Pedro said, we are a mystery. So something arrive, and this enough for me. Okay, I have to be short, considering the hours.
Yes, Pier Giorgio, thank you so much. We do recognize ourselves as being kindred to each other, don't we? And our subjectivity is different from one another, but we are related in so very many ways. And you just mentioned the ways we are related through words, definitely. Through these orientation signals, the words, and our paths coincide somewhere through mystery, through the development, our development from tradition to the avant-garde, through our expression of the voice of life, which is necessary and urgent, a voice that unites us all, through our choice of themes, through our trip from Eros to Thanatos. And through this, we face all these shared universal experiences of pain, of intimation, of joy. We talk about history. We talk about our own subjectivity, our identity. We blend the spiritual and the material. We blend the feeling of time, our contemporaneity, and actually our pastness. And also, we share the conflicts that all our nations go through, and we express this in our language in order to find some kind of inspiration to build our spirits. Finally, we invent a world, in the words of Pier Giorgio. We build an archetype, unhinging time and space, talking to everyone, because poetry, despite languages and idioms and whatever else, is universal. So wonderful poets, thank you so very much for this wonderful afternoon. It's lovely what we shared together, and definitely we are going to have something else coming up in the next year, we hope. So everyone, thank you very much. And I would like to express my deep gratitude for sharing your thoughts and feelings and for sharing your beautiful poems with us. So we will meet again in real time and space. And I want to wish you best of luck and inspiration to all of you, and also to our wonderful organizing committee for this opportunity. Thank you.
Excellent views and discussion. Third cycle is over. Now we will hear Mr. Kotopoulos to thank you everyone.
Yes, dear friends, Liana, all of us enjoyed a very interesting conversation, and I have to confess that I jotted down a lot of your thoughts. Mr. Skiathas and I thank you very much for your participation, and we want to inform you that there will be an archive of your audiovisual presentation in our festival in our webpage culturebook.gr. Thank you very, very much.
So, our event is over. Thank you everyone for your participation. See you tomorrow. Good afternoon.